confirm we're now live.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kirsty. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this local Outbreak Engagement Board meeting of Bracknell Forest. Gives me pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon. And I wonder if we could first our roll call, please, to establish just who's on the call.
Chair, I've received apologies initially from Abby Thomas, Sophie Gardner and Sarah Bellers. However, as is sometimes the case, people who have problems accessing digital services, if anybody on the board hasn't provided their apologies but is not present, I will record them anyway. Members of the board, please turn on your microphone and confirm you're present when I call your name. Anyone who doesn't respond, as I mentioned, will be recorded as giving their apologies. Councillor Dr. Barnard.
Present.
Councillor Betterson.
Present.
Councillor Birch. Councillor Brunel Walker. Councillor Brunel Walker, you're on silent.
He's mutedly present.
Thank you. Andrew Hunter.
Present.
Abby Thomas has provided apologies. Kelly Williams.
Present.
Elena Rozelle.
Present.
Gabby Hafner.
Present.
Acting Inspector Sophie Gardner has provided apologies. Fiona Slevin Brown. Apologies will be recorded. Philip Bell.
Present.
Thank you. Other possible attendees, Timothy Whedon.
Present.
Sarah Bellers has provided apologies. Shamake Essay.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Hayes.
Present.
Councillor Harrison. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Turrell. James Sunderland, MP. Adam Afriya, MP. Jerry Barber.
Present.
Mary Stamp.
Present.
Is there anyone else present whose name I've not called? Thank you, Chair. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you. Colleagues, we'll move straight on, having dealt with apologies. We move on to declarations of interest when I ask any member if they have any disclosable pecuniary or affected interests to declare. If anybody has, please speak up now, or should the discussions take an unexpected turn and you realise there is a potential disclosable interest, then please feel free to interrupt proceedings at any time. Thank you very much for that. Kirstine, do we have any urgent items of business, please?
No, Chair, I'm not aware of any. However, I have noticed Councillor Birch has joined the call. So, Councillor Birch, can you just confirm your attendance for me, please?
Apologies for late arrival. Present.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Councillor Birch. Right, well then we'll move straight into the first item of real business today, which is item 4. And we'd like to take a look at the national and local COVID-19 status, and that's to be reported today by Gabby Hafner. Oh, Gabby.
Thank you, Chair.
We've got it on the screen.
As if by magic.
Thank you.
So we'll launch straight into the situational awareness, and this is looking at the current COVID rates in our local authority and our neighbouring local authorities in Berkshire. So the table shows here, the top row here is Bracknell Forest, and at the bottom of the table we have the England and the South East averages. So you can see from on this table here, in this box here, that the average case number per 100,000 population at the moment is 463, and that's on its way down. In fact, it's reduced by 8% in the last week. And while that's a fairly good decrease for us, our neighbours in other parts of Berkshire have experienced decreases in the range of 20 to 33%. And to put it in some other perspective, when we met on the 5th of October, the case rate then was 298. So we have experienced a much higher numbers, and that's very much linked to cases in schools. And we'll look into that in some more detail shortly. You can see that the case rates in some of our neighbouring authorities, such as West Berkshire and Wokingham, are substantially higher, but they have dropped very much in the last few days, as well. Half term has given us a bit of a fire break, and we'll have to wait and see whether those numbers creep back up again as the children return to school this week. This slide here just gives the data thresholds. Unfortunately, we're experiencing all of the top ones at the moment. And when we look at the case rates over the last 12 months for the whole of Berkshire, the blue line is the Berkshire line, the orange line is the South East average, and the grey line is the England average. You can see that Berkshire as a whole experienced a spike in recent days, and that's very much linked to the testing issues in the west of the county, which are shown more clearly on this graph, where you can see Bracknell Forest rates are largely in line with the South East and England averages, but our neighbours in West Berkshire and Wokingham, who were particularly hit by the testing issues at Newbury Showground and the lab associated with that, have experienced a big spike, and thankfully are on their way down. When we look geographically at Berkshire and surrounding areas, you can see that all of us are experiencing case rates over 250. And when we looked at the picture last month, it was only West Berkshire that had a lower rate. And obviously we now know that's probably linked to those testing issues. Looking at the southeast footprint more wholly, we are this little blob here, and directly below us is Surrey Heath, who are experiencing much higher rates. And you can see towards the west of Berkshire, this is West Berkshire here, they've got a higher rate. The darker colours where rates are high are Swindon, and down here is Winchester, as well as Surrey Heath. When we look at the epidemiology across Berkshire by age, we are this section here, and the blue area is our under 18s, and that makes up 50% of our current case rate. And that's largely the same as it was a month ago, and rather similar to our neighbours, as you can see. When we look at the Bracknell Forest wards, they're all in the 250 plus area. But this little picture down here from last month on the 5th of October, you can see that the situation there was the case rates then were not so high. Looking on a ward by ward basis, the 3 wards with the highest levels over the last 7 days are Harmons Water, Great Hollands North, and Binfield with Warfield, who've all experienced a case rate of 50 or more per 100,000 population in the last week that we have complete records for. These seem to fluctuate between the wards. There are 1 or 2 that do experience higher case rates, and when we've investigated that further, there does seem to be a bit of a link with lower vaccination uptake. This is the heat map for Bracknell Forest, and this one covers the last month. The darker the colour, the higher the case rates, and where there are yellow areas, that indicates that there are no cases in that age range. So it's pleasing to see that at the top here in the 90 plus areas, we currently no case rates, but you can see these very dark and persistent patches in our school age children where the case rates have remained stubbornly high. And then again in the 40 to 44 age group, which is probably the parent age group, and that's bled into the higher and lower age groups around there, and even up into perhaps parent age. So the impact of school children has been significant in Bracknell Forest. And we've pulled out the figures here so that in the 10 to 14 age group, on the 20th of October, we had a case rate of over 2,000 per 100,000. That's currently dropped by nearly half, and it'd be interesting to see where those figures go once the children have returned to school from half term for a few days. When we look at the deaths that have been experienced from COVID-19 across the whole of the county of Berkshire, there have been 1,881 throughout the pandemic. Specifically in Bracknell Forest, we've had 198, and that is showing 153 additional deaths, more than we would have expected. So if the difference between those figures is 45. So unfortunately, 45 people we would have expected to die in that period, but we've had an additional 153 linked to COVID. The picture in our hospitals is quite challenging at the moment. I'm sure you all heard on the news that South Central Ambulance Service has declared a critical incident, and we know that there are increasing numbers of patients with COVID in our hospitals. On the 19th of October, there were 56 patients in Frimley Health Foundation Trust hospitals with COVID-19, and 8 of those were on mechanical ventilation. Looking at the vaccination period, these tables are for people who have had doses 1 and 2. Although the print is very small, I'm afraid, this top row here is Bracknell Forest, and the bottom 2 rows are the South East and England percentages. On this side of the table, we've got the figures for the 18 plus as a whole and 40 plus as a whole. In Bracknell Forest, for 18 plus, we're on 81%, which is 3% higher than the South East average and 5% higher than the England average. For the 40 plus section, we're 88% in Bracknell Forest, whereas the South East average is 87 and England 86. On here, the figures for under 18s look very small, but we do need to bear in mind that we don't vaccinate currently children under 12, and children aged 12 to 17 are currently only healthy children aged 12 to 17 are currently only eligible for a single vaccination dose due to the health implications associated with a second dose at that age. And then the final slide is just about where to find more information. And that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Gabby. That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, do we have any questions for Gabby on her presentation? No? Well, Gabby, that was very thorough, and thank you. And
I think there is a hand up, I'm afraid.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, Councillor Mrs. Hayes.
No, it's actually Gareth. I was going to come in after it, but I thought it's only going to be about schools, isn't it, Gareth? And now the little darlings are all back and crossing the borders and getting on their buses. But I'm sure I'll leave that to you.
Okay, Dr. Barnard.
That wasn't actually going to be my first question. So my first question is, we've seen a reduction because no doubt the half-term circuit break.
Yeah.
Based on what we've seen in the pandemic up to now, am I right in assuming that we would expect now to see those cases move up again? How will we know if the enhanced measures that we have put in our schools, and, you know, could I just extend my thanks to all the schools for the work they've done in doing this, are actually having an impact on that? Because it does concern me. Here we are in early November, and we're looking at some uncomfortably high case rates. And when I saw that heat map, I could see the colour going purple in the parents of secondary age children. So it's really sort of a little bit of context for those external to the organisation what this means, because I don't read it as being good news where we are at the moment. But I'm happy to be corrected if I can be corrected. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with you, Councillor Barnard. I think the rates are likely to go up, and they certainly did last year. We would hope that the measures that we have put into schools, along with the vaccination of 12 to 15-year-olds, will make that increase slower than we've seen before. The current vaccination rate for the 12 to 15-year-olds in Bracknell Forest is 33%. That's largely in line with our neighbours. And of course, the school's immunisation team have still got a couple more weeks worth of secondary school vaccinations to go ahead. And the government announced recently that 12 to 15-year-olds can now use the national booking system to pick up vaccination.
Very much. And I will allow Councillor Mrs. Hayes to ask the question that she thought I was going to ask.
No,
sorry, did Kelly want to come in first?
You actually asked, and it is a concern when you do look at what was on the grid and showing the rise. My concern is it will be where we do have, when you look at Wokingham with their figures high, and then you have the Windsor side, and we cross over with the schools. It is my worry. It is the the older set that is going to cause us the problem during the half. Now the half turns over and we're back into it. I really have great concerns, but I am grateful to some of the letters. I have been shown some by parents whereby they have taken on board the seriousness of really keeping distance and that with the young persons as they leave in the evenings and going out. But thank you. Yes, you covered it. Thank you on that, Gareth.
Thank you. Kelly Williams.
Thanks. Yeah, just wanted to add to what Gabby said in terms of that we do anticipate those figures will go up again. We held a regular meeting of the East Berkshire Health Protection Board this morning. And as we discussed at the last local outbreak engagement board, that will be the board that will keep under constant review the enhanced measures that have been recommended into schools. So just wanted to make the board aware that despite the fact that we have seen that reduction in case rates in our school-age children, we are attributing that largely to half term, and therefore the board did formally agree to keep those measures in place this morning in anticipation of, as you've already pointed out, Councillor Barnard, an anticipation that case rates will increase again now that school children are back.
Thank you very much, Kelly. That's very helpful, and it's good to know that we're keeping that consistent message through the second half of this term. And my recollection is that we've written out to the schools and we've said that these measures should stay in place till Christmas, as it stands at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much indeed. And thank you, Gabby. So that's the national and local status. If we now move on to agenda item 5, we have the communications and engagement update, both national and local. And I believe today that's being introduced by Elena.
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me 2 seconds while I share my screen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, have it.
Just make it a bit bigger. Great.
Thank you.
So the priorities for us are very similar to what we were working on last month when we met. So vaccinations have continued to be a big drive for us, a big part of our publicity push. We've been promoting the booster vaccination for people 50 plus or for people who are eligible for health reasons, how to get it and why, just making that as clear and as easy as possible for people to understand. We had a mobile vaccination unit in Sandhurst and Ellesmere a couple of weeks ago. So we promoted that through our regular blanket publicity, so things like the media advertising, that kind of thing. But we also made sure we did some targeted advertising, so geo-targeted to the specific area. But we also have information sent via children's centres, gyms and football clubs in the local area, which resulted in about 200 people being vaccinated over a 4-day period. We've been promoting vaccinations for 12 to 15-year-olds. As Gabby mentioned earlier, they can now actually be vaccinated in medical centres, and one of our local centres is offering that service. We only started promoting this last week, so we will continue to push that message over the next couple of weeks to ensure that parents understand that that is now a viable option and how to book if they need to. And we've also been myth busting over the past couple of, it's really been over the past couple of days actually. Thank you to Kirsten who showed us some misconceptions that had been circulating in the borough. That was really helpful because we could actually put some information out specifically around the ingredients and the safety of the vaccinations. We were able to start doing some myth busting, so thank you for that. And lastly, we're just doing some additional videos. We're working on those to increase and encourage uptake, including Councillor Burke's vaccination videos. We've been trying to reach groups that traditionally we haven't been engaging with. So what we've been doing is getting information, including posters, leaflets, videos, digital assets, into places and into organisations that we wouldn't traditionally hit that target audience. So for example, places like Shop Mobility and the Looking Cafe have been great in helping us get those messages to the slightly older demographic, whereas places like builders merchants and football and rugby clubs locally have been helping us get that information to the male audience, the traditional male audience who go to those sort of areas. That's really helping to hit those audiences because they don't engage with the council's Facebook or other channels that we've been using. So thank you to everybody in the community who's been helping us with that over the past month or so. In terms of testing, we ran a campaign last week about returning to school. So we had some information going out across a wide range of assets, including digital and social media, but we also made sure that parents had the information via their schools. So thank you to our schools for sending that information out. We publicised the testing for travel changes that happened from October 24th. We made sure we got that information out before half term started, just because we knew lots of families would be going on holiday and needed that information. We've been pushing the lateral flow messages specifically around pharmacy collect, and that you now need a code for home tests. And we've also been promoting the pop-up testing site, specifically the Sandhurst one, where processing is much quicker, just making it much easier for people to go along and encourage that behaviour change. And finally, for comms, the behaviour side of things, we've been focusing very much on the celebrations that are happening at the moment. So Halloween, Diwali and Bonfire Night around. If you are meeting with friends and family, it's really important that if you meet indoors to let the fresh air in. And actually it's still safer to meet outdoors. And then we're also continuing the Be Courteous campaign with the leaders column and social media over the next couple of weeks, just encouraging people to wear face coverings where it's busy, carry on with hand washing and meeting in ventilated homes. We're making all of this information available via a whole range of channels because we know one size doesn't fit all. So we're making it available across digital, across advertising, through our community information champions, through radio advertising, the media, and we're also making it available in alternative formats where needed. We have a health booklet going out. Distribution starts on Monday, so it should be hitting the doorsteps imminently, and that will have all of this information on. It just helps to get that message out to people who don't engage with us normally or don't have access to digital means. In terms of our engagement team have been working on looking at local demographic data to see where areas of high percentages of non-white British residents are, and they've also been breaking down through the settlement scheme, the EU settlement scheme, what nationalities we have in the borough and the languages that are spoken. And this is really helping us to understand what different assets we need. Do we need it in different languages? Do we need different interpretations? So that work's ongoing and is really helping to drive the targeted communications. They've also been working to identify potential venues for things like testing. So looking at where ethnic shops are, community facilities, specifically in the Binfield with Warford area, but across the borough as well, to make sure that we have the right things in the right place for our communities. And lastly, they've employed a community engagement officer who is helping us to get more momentum with the engagement work over the next couple of months, specifically looking at underserved communities, for example, the Gypsy Roma Traveller community, Polish and African heritage communities. That's it for comms and engagement for today, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much indeed. That's very helpful indeed, Elena. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for Elena? No, I can't see anybody got their hands up. So, Elena, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is public participation. And I'd like to ask Kirstine if we've received any questions from members of the public.
Chair, I'm not aware of any questions from members of the public that have been submitted to the committee Dropbox in advance of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And then finally, we need to just review by exception the LOEB action log. Is there anything by exception that requires review?
Chair, there's nothing that requires review by exception. Items of false or fake news have been notified and Elena has covered those off in her presentation, unless anybody else has anything that they wish to bring up at this point.
Okay. Colleagues, does anybody have anything to bring up right now? No? Okay. Well then, all that remains is for me to thank you all for your hard work, not just at this meeting, but at the incredible amount of work that goes on between these meetings. I really do would like to express my gratitude and that of all elected members to officers and colleagues who work for other organisations, but we're all working together on this. So that just leaves me to announce the date of the next regular meeting, which will be on the 30th of November. And unless, of course, something occurs that causes us to have an extra meeting, in which case we'll notify you all. But thank you very much indeed for your participation today, and look forward to seeing you all soon.